we are doing our best to be respectful of what is happening in that courtroom, but also at the same time relaying the proper information to you. Elizabeth, I know my time with you is limited. I know you have to go back in there, so I want to ask you real quick, what were the highlights of the cross-examination, and also what is the tone by which the cross-examination is being done? Is it combative back and forth? That's the thing we can't get from the transcript right now.
Yeah, as far as the cross-examination goes, for the most part, it seems very casual. We were thinking that it might be aggressive, it might be combative, but for the most part, Cassie has been very forthcoming in answering these questions. You know, she's showing, Ana Maria Estevao is showing her text messages and email chains and BlackBerry messages from 2007, from 2009, where Cassie is confessing her love to Diddy, or she is asking for a freak off, or she's, asking, about just more intimate details from her relationship with him. Because to your point, Jesse, a lot of this stuff, some of these messages that we did see in court today were very graphic in nature. And so, the questioning was starting out about the relationship between the two. When it first started out in around that 2007 time period, around that 2009 period, that's when the questioning at the beginning of it kind of all started. And you would think that would be, an aggressive moment or a combative moment, especially as you're seeing messages that say, "I'm a very lucky woman. I miss you and I'd fly wherever you need me. I love you." And then you see Diddy respond, "I love you so much. It makes me cry." And then Cassie writing back, you hungry pop pop. But I'm thinking, just from my perspective, that around those time frames, she was still relatively young. For the most part, she was in her early 20s. She was also asked about a previous relationship she had with another music producer named Ryan Leslie. And around this time frame, the defense was kind of saying, when you started dating him, you were 18, 19 years old and he was 10 years older than you. And asking, with respect to Sean Combs and with respect to Diddy, asking whether or not, that her entire world opened up because she was dating this man at this time period. Because remember, around that time, Diddy essentially reigned king amongst everyone. And so a lot of the questioning was a lot of messages that were shown today. A lot saying, "I love you so much. It made me feel like I can't wait until we just don't care anymore." And by saying we don't care anymore, that's about, her just wanting to be open and public about this relationship. You see Cassie say, "Pop Pop, I really miss you." And Diddy responding in these messages, "Me too, baby. Damn, I can't wait until I see you." You see a 2010 message where Cassie says, "So you hung up. It's like I need to have something written out to say to you with no breathing room or you'll get mad at me. I haven't talked to you at all. I know you have 3 minutes," because, around this time he is running a bunch of businesses. He's going to board meetings. He's traveling across the country. But it seems like, Cassie, from her point of view, just by reading these messages, that you could kind of tell that she was just somebody, at least from my perspective, somebody that was young and in love and just wanted her boyfriend around that time. I will say, as far as just kind of the tone in the courtroom today, this was a day many of us were waiting for, because it is the cross-examination. We were wondering what the defense is going to try to poke at with, kind of maybe discrediting some of the claims, especially the claims about whether or not this was consensual or non-consensual, whether or not Cassie initiated wanting to do these FOs, or whether it was, Sean Combs who initiated and wanted to do it and made her, gather these escorts. And we haven't gotten too far into the testimony. I will say one thing today, Jesse, and some of the arguments that we had heard, even as I was leaving the courtroom just to come out and do this hit with you today, is that Cassie may be on the stand well until tomorrow as well, too, still in cross-examination, something that the judge was a little like, "Whoa, what are you guys talking about? You guys told me that you would be wrapped up today or possibly tomorrow." And the defense said today that they still have so much more to go over, to the point that this could drag into Friday and possibly even spill over into Monday if they have to do redirect or even have to do recross. And so that was something that they were ironing out as soon as the lunch break hit, right when I was leaving to come out here to speak with you. And so it seems like they still have a long ways to go into this cross-examination. There were times that I was thinking maybe that this would get combative, maybe Cassie would get mad or angry or anything like that. I saw none of that. She was, again, very forthcoming. answering her questions in the courtroom, still very soft-spoken, even when those graphic messages were shown inside the courtroom, even as she had to read some of these, and these are very sexual in nature. Some of them I'm not going to repeat here on air, but for the most part, when she was answering the question, she still kept the exact same tone that she had had even during her direct examination. As for Ana Maria Estevao, excuse me, I mispronounced her name earlier when we were talking about her, but even when she was asking her questions, it was a little kind of messy at times. I was kind of like, is she just going to ask a direct question? And Cassie was like, can you repeat that? Can you rephrase it? And then there were a lot of objections during the line of questioning. One thing I did note is that I'm a little surprised that Ana Maria Estevao is actually doing the line of questioning, because from what I can see of her, she's conferring a lot with Tenny Garagos during this line of questioning, whereas with AUSA Emily Johnson, when she was doing her direct examination, as far as, Maureen Comey, as far as she was participating in that, she was just, handing her sticky notes from time to time. She would get up, she would sit down. It wasn't too distracting, kind of like it is a little bit between the defense table, just kind of going back and forth. You see Diddy at the defense table. He is, again, participating in his defense. He's very much eyeballing these exhibits. He's writing notes down. He's conferring, with Mark Agnifilo and who's sitting right beside him, who normally sits kind of at the end of the table, but for today he's sitting right beside Diddy. And so that's pretty much the big sticking points that I'm definitely seeing with this cross-examination so far. And again, we still have so much more to go, according to the defense. They're not even scratching the surface yet, according to them.
Not surprisingly, I think it was said today, this is the star witness of the prosecution's case. I think the defense, their case, is mostly wrapped up in how Cassandra Ventura appears in front of this jury. So I'm not surprised it's going to take some time. Elizabeth, I wish we had a little bit more time, but I know you have to jump back into that courtroom. So thank you so much. We're going to get you back later on in the day. Elizabeth Millner, great reporting as always. Thank you.
Thanks, Jesse.
All right, so I want to continue the conversation and take your questions right now about this. I'm back here with Saf. I'm back here with Serena. So one of the questions that we got, and I want to pull it up right now. Let me just pull it up where it was, where we got it. It was a good question. Now I'm having trouble finding it. Okay. This is a question from Jaden Jarrell. I'm going to throw this to you, Safa. Do you think the text messages make her not credible? And when we think about text messages, I'll give you an example. This was one from apparently she wrote to Combs in an email. In order for me to be more open with the things we do in bed, I need to feel safe, like home, like this is my husband, and this is the only man that will ever have this aggressive sexual side of me. When we used to freak off, when we were so in love, there were no questions asked. It felt right, like it literally made sense for the next step in our sex life together. What do you think?
The text messages certainly will weigh on her credibility. I think what we've heard, or what we're hearing now through the cross-examination, is the defense attorney essentially using these text messages to say to her, well, listen, you again were a willing participant, you continue this relationship with him. And the defense is highlighting that through those text messages and through the conversations Ms. Ventura has been having. But it also goes both ways, because also in those text messages, which there are some ones for the prosecution here, she discusses how he has been physically violent towards her. They discuss the freak offs and a number of other things that really go to show that there was some sort of physical violence within the relationship, threats of force and things like that, which the government essentially has to prove. So the jury is going to determine how credible Ms. Ventura is, and the judge will instruct them on how to determine that. And they will be able to decide whether or not those text messages are consistent with her credibility, and if they either bolster or affirm her credibility or discredit her.
Well, I'll tell you what, we did a poll up on Law&Crime. This was the question. After hearing both the allegations and the defense cross-examination so far, who do you find more credible? 80% say Cassie, 20% say Diddy. Serena, you think that's going to be consistent with what the jury's thinking at this point? Or it's very difficult to know because, again, there's one thing how we're listening to the transcript, or at least we're reading from the transcript, versus how the questioning is done inside that courtroom. What do you think?
So much plays a role here, Jesse. It goes in every different direction. First of all, the people who are taking the poll are almost self-selected, right? They're obviously interested and have been following the Diddy case for a long time. They might actually know, your Law and Crime viewers might know a lot more about this case than the jurors do, at least at this point. And so it's hard to say whether it's going to, spill over to how the jury feels. On the other hand, the jury is supposed to be objective. It's supposed to reflect the community. And hopefully the jury is listening very, very intently to all of the testimony, both the cross and also the direct from the prosecution. I do think that Cassie has come across very credible. I also do think that there is a little bit of an uphill battle with respect to these text messages, because they're going to try to say, look, you're saying these things now, but your state of mind at the time was that you were a willing participant.
We'll talk about the defense and something that Elizabeth just brought up, Safa. Why would it be Ana Esteveo is doing the cross-examination as opposed to Tenny Garagos? Do you have a theory about that?
Oh, absolutely. There's absolutely no way that the defense could have allowed a male to cross-examine Miss Ventura. For optics
Well,
purposes.
Tenny Garagos is a woman.
Yeah, well, and so I guess to the point, and I think what I heard Elizabeth say was what she was conferring, or I think it was Miss Anna who was conferring with other attorneys. But essentially, they need a woman to cross-examine Miss Ventura, and the importance of that is because optically speaking, when you have a man who is cross-examining a woman, especially a pregnant woman who is very delicate in nature because of her pregnancy condition, it just looks bad to have a male cross-examine her. So it's not surprising that the defense would have made the decision to have this particular attorney cross-examine her. And I think for optics speaking, that was the right thing for them to do. If they had a male cross-examining Miss Ventura, it would have just looked very aggressive, as if they're pummeling down or combative with a woman who is pregnant and fragile and maybe in the view of the eyes or in the eyes of the jury is a victim. So they're very careful about that.
It's interesting when we talk about her cross-examination because we have a question here, Serena, from Legs 7K. With today's cross-examination, could Cassie be on the stand tomorrow, or is there a new witness to testify? So it seems the judge said in court, hey, listen, guys, the plan was, you always knew her testimony had to end this week. Now, why that's the case, maybe it has to do with pregnancy. I'm not entirely sure, but what I will tell you is there is a lot more they need to question her about, and there's a lot more that I imagine the prosecution wants to come back at with a redirect. Why is it so important to have this testimony finished up by the end of the week? Do you think that this is realistically going to end by tomorrow, or do you think this has to extend until Monday? I mean, doesn't the defense and the prosecution have a right to question this witness as much as they need to? This is the star witness in this case.
100%. I would highly doubt that this is going to end today. Most likely it will continue tomorrow, possibly into Monday. I'm smiling because I think it's funny in a way, because even though this is P. Diddy and he's a famous guy and this is, the trial of the century at the moment, these scheduling things happen in all cases. Judges get very frustrated. Witnesses get frustrated routinely when things don't go their way, when schedules are longer than expected. The judge also wants to keep the schedule tight for the jury's purpose. I assume that the tightness, though, is because Cassie is pregnant. They don't want to overwhelm her. They don't want a medical situation. They want to make sure that she's okay. But you are correct. Both sides have an opportunity and must have an opportunity, especially Diddy's team, to confront his accuser.
And Serena, real quick follow-up on that. A part of me wonders, while they had to have her testify first, she's the star witness of the case, and also the practical reality is we can't wait 8 weeks. She might give birth. But at the same time, primacy, recency, this is going to be 8 weeks from when the jury hears her testimony and goes into deliberations. Is that a problem or a benefit for the prosecution? I spoke to a lawyer earlier today who said, first thing the jury hears, they're going to remember that versus, towards the end, when the defense has an opportunity to cross-examine the prosecution's star witness, might not work to their benefit. I understand the practical realities of having her testify first, but is that going to hurt or help the prosecution?
Well, I love that you came up with primacy and recency. Those psychological thoughts are very apparent in trials all the time. The first thing you hear and the last thing you hear are typically the things that you remember. And so there's so much strategy that happens when prosecutions present a case to a jury. So much goes into who goes first, when they say the things that they need to say, whether they're still on the stand during cross, during the weekend. Are the jurors going to be thinking about her testimony over the weekend? And how are they going to be thinking about it? Was it the last word that they heard from the defense? Was the last word that they heard from the prosecution? Strategy is so important in trial, and the order of witnesses has a lot to do with that strategy. So I think for two reasons, yeah, the fact that she's going to give birth very soon, and the fact that the prosecution wants the jury to remember her testimony are two solid reasons why Cassie went first.
So by the way, I think she also went first, and not to self-promote, but I'll self-promote because this is what I do. I did a sidebar. It's coming out later today. I mentioned it before. We matched up Cassandra Ventura's direct examination and how it will help prove the elements of each one of the charges. So, Safa, I think that when she talks about threats of violence, control, that all works to force, fraud, coercion, elements of sex trafficking, her being transported, allegedly having sexual relations with escorts in different cities, them getting paid, goes to sex trafficking. When she mentions, escorts, at least one being brought to different cities, transportation to engage in prostitution. The racketeering case is interesting. Safa, we have a question from Sharada Ramanthan. Apologies if I mispronounced that. The evidence of an entire enterprise being involved is way beyond domestic abuse, right? Yes. I'm curious, based on what you've seen in her direct examination, do you think she has provided enough of this racketeering, criminal enterprise, common purpose, racketeering conspiracy is the actual charge? Do you think she's done it?
I think she's certainly setting the framework for that. And I think to an extent she has. With regard to an enterprise, it needs to be an individual or at least one or more people acting in concert and things of that nature. Mr. Combs, in and of himself, is an individual. So her testimony that at his direction he was doing certain things to further this sex trafficking and kidnapping or conspiracy, is enough. Now, what I expect that the prosecution is going to do is that they are going to add additional witnesses after Ms. Ventura comes off the stand that will help further the idea or their theory that there were other people that were acting in concert or this criminal enterprise, whether that be security guards or other people that may have worked for Mr. Combs during that time period, which will go to show that this was an enterprise. But I think that Cassie or Ms. Ventura has set the framework, and we have a little bit from her, maybe not enough, but I think the prosecution's on the right track with showing that this is an enterprise.